Good evening, Suffolk Ram here.
Skazz, yes.
Welcome to episode 260 of the Randaz podcast.
Wait, did you just say 260?
260, yes.
Whoa. I've
Whoa.
teleported. Whoa, man.
Whoa, man. Yeah,
Trippy.
there's nothing special about the number 260 as far as I'm aware. Let's Google what's special about the number 260.
Gonna be something really dire in it.
Well, according to numbermatics.com,
Yeah.
260 is an even composite number composed of three prime numbers multiplied together. I don't know
And
what.
there you go.
Yeah.
I
Apparently,
thought everyone knew that.
apparently, 260 can be written as 260.
Can it?
Yeah, apparently so. It's a factor. It's got three prime factors, subprime factors. Some of the prime factors are 20. It's got in binary. It's only got two ones. The rest all zeros. To count from 1 to 260 would take approximately 2 minutes. I think that sounds too quick.
I'm not testing. I'm not testing it.
That sounds too quick to me. 2 minutes. That's.
Is that like speed counting?
That's like that's like counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it'd be like you have to do like four numbers a second. I mean,
Yeah, I ain't doing that.
I can accept that with low numbers, but once you get to like 120, 121, 122, you can't do it.
Nah, mate, because I can barely keep up with remembering the last thing that I said, so no. I'm too old.
Right. Oh, fantastic fact. The 260 backwards is 062.
Is it?
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah.
I don't believe it. I reckon you're just making this stuff up. I didn't ask for weird news.
I get the feeling this website's scraping the bottom of the barrel for this one.
But it's just told us that it's an important number. Without 260, there wouldn't be 261, because it'd just be weird if you had a 261 without a 260. So I suppose, it's doing its part.
Yeah, well, you'll be pleased to know Wikipedia out has an article on the number 260, because it would. 260 is the natural number following 259 and preceding 261.
Funny enough, I was then about to say that exact same thing. I was going to say, it follows on from, but leads into. Good job, Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And then you'll look at the editor of the article, and it was me.
Yeah. It's an abundant number or excessive number.
That really depends.
An abundant number or excessive number is a positive integer for which the sum of its proper divisors is greater than the number. For example, the integer 12 is the first abundant number. Its proper divisors are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 for a total 16. The amount by which the sum exceeds the number is its abundance. The number 12 has an abundance of 4, for example. Do you ever get the feeling that mathematicians have too much time on their hands?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, actually.
Yeah. It's also an Ulam number. In mathematics, the Ulam numbers comprise an integer sequence devised by and named after Stanislaus Ulam, who introduced in 1964. What is it? I mean, anyone can make a sequence up. I could read the Suffolk Ram sequence and just rip some random numbers together.
Get it done, son. You might get into a book.
Yeah.
You might get a Wikipedia article.
Maybe. It's in the Mosde-Bajun sequence. In number 3, the Mosde-Bajun sequence is an integer sequence named after Leon Mosya and Nicolas Govan de Bajun, consisting of the sums of distinct powers of 4. Equivalently, they are the numbers whose binary representations are non-zero only at uneven positions. Yes. I understand.
Mate,
some of those words I understand.
I think mathematicians, just like physicists, like computer scientists, they're just making shit up. They need to keep getting that grant. They're bored.
Right.
What can we do today?
The big advantage that physicists have over mathematicians, they get to build cool things.
Well, as long as their grants go through.
Yeah, but then they
have to keep making shit up to prove that thing may or may not exist.
I want to build a big, massive electronic gun. I just got the saying I'm going to use to find a particle, and they let me have the money.
Yeah, I mean, but you've had to make up the fact that particle's even a thing.
Well, true, yeah.
You've had to literally spew gobbledygook at the person who's like, yeah.
And the great thing is, they're in it for the long term, because often the people who build the machines aren't the people who made the particle up. I mean, what would mathematicians get? Mathematicians get some more paper. Physicists,
yeah, but what is it? Good paper, or is it the good quality stuff, or are they just giving me that stuff? It may be good quality stuff,
but it's not the same as building like a fusion reactor, is it? Or particle accelerator. Which would you rather play with, particle accelerator or some paper?
That's a tough one. I mean, can I play with some paper whilst walking along a particle accelerator?
One of the beauties of doing it is that you can still have paper even if you're doing physics. You see?
I like it.
You see?
Physicist it will be.
Right, perfect. So yeah, mathematicians, get a job.
Get a job. Mathematicians, just like the royals, get a job.
I mean, when was the last time that... Okay, I can understand that mathematicians like making like roles, for example, statistical analysis. I can understand statisticians and stuff like that. But when was the last time a mathematician kept? I've come up with a new number that's revolutionised, theory.
Can we get like a mathematician like in government? That'd be kind of nice.
Well, they've got plenty of spare time, so should be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd like someone who can count, beyond their shoe size, really, to get some stuff done. And seeing as you guys need jobs, we have openings.
And you can have all the paper you want.
Yeah, I might even give you some crayons.
Huh.
I mean, you might want to use like pens or pencils or whatever it is, but I'll give you some really nice crayons.
If you play your cards right, I'll give you a protractor.
Wait, mate, I've seen what high school students do with those things, right? No. Mathematician, could you imagine? They're sat there all this time trying to find a use for something that they do that hasn't already been done, that a physicist isn't already ripping them off for, right? They will lose their shit and probably... Could you imagine the number of protractor-based stabbings you're going to find?
It'd be more exciting, wouldn't it?
How did he do that? He's just literally decapitated 15 people with a fucking protractor. What? Yeah, right. You know that maths tool?
Right, look, let me put it this way. When was the last time you heard of a mathematician going postal? They're quite calm people.
Oh, I don't know.
Name me one mathematician who's been a serial killer.
I'm not gonna go there. We're not doing this.
Only because you can't.
We're not playing this. We'll come back next time.
Let me have a look, shall we? Let's see. Mathematician serial killers.
To be fair, I was actually quite disappointed at serial killers. Serial killer makes them sound really dedicated. But it's only a 3 count, mate.
Is that what you need to be a serial killer? Not 2?
Yeah, serial killers 3. No, just 3. 3 count.
Why not 2?
Because, I don't know, it's really easy to do that in a hit and run. So I suppose 3, they wanted to...
Oh.
There has been, hasn't there, Ram?
It turns out the Unabomber was a brilliant mathematician.
Good old fucking... No, I'm not saying it.
Well.
Did you not know that?
No, I did not know that. I knew he was like sort of a clever guy.
Oh, I knew he was a clever guy.
Yeah, I didn't know he was a
mathematician. He was a university professor, man.
Well, that's pretty clever.
Yeah, but look... Oh, okay. Yeah, come on. Let's move on.
Anyway, games we've been playing.
I've played some, Ram.
Go on. What have you played?
I've played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the sequel, but not quite sequel, to Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is actually just a part of Final Fantasy VII, the original game that they decided they were going to separate into another thing because they wanted to do Final Fantasy VII episodically.
Right. I've lost track completely. So first I was Final Fantasy VII.
Yep.
Then it was the remake or Rebirth?
Remake.
Remake. And now there's a Rebirth.
Yes, which is effectively like disc 2.
Oh,
and then there's going to be a third one.
Oh, so is the remake only part of Final Fantasy VII?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So they're both remakes then, just that one's disc 1, one's disc 2. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. Sure.
Why can I call it Remake Part 2?
Electric Boogaloo? I don't know. No, I would have liked it if they'd have done that. But they didn't. I would have also liked if they'd have just, made it one thing, but they didn't.
Is it at least smarter to pull your stuff from the first one, from the first remake? Would it pull across it more?
No.
What?
No.
So hang on, your character's effectively reset between each game?
Yeah, from what I can tell, yes.
What?
Yeah.
So it's not a part 2 then, is it really?
Well, I mean, it follows on. It just doesn't take anything from your data. No, that's a lie. If you have completion data, then it will allow you to unlock a new materia for Rebirth.
No.
Like anything else? Well, I mean, you'd have established the plot up until this point. I mean, that's something else, right?
Skazz, how they fucked this up so much?
Because what we all wanted was a remaster, a very pretty remaster. What we got was a remake, and remake means that they can take as many liberties as they bloody want.
Oh.
So that's what they've done. Lots of. We've had this discussion before, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
Because you've played Final Fantasy VII.
I have.
And we're going to be referencing that a little bit, right, in this. But we established Final Fantasy VII Remake was a 50-hour game. Right? The first part is a 50-hour game. The entirety of Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 1 was like 30 hours? 40 maybe? Rebirth is looking like it's going to clock in about the same kind of length.
Fucking hell.
As Remake. Okay, so first off, it's tied into the Final Fantasy VII universe. I predicted back when Remake came out that it was going to be... There's a character in it called Aerith, and she sees visions from the planet. She's a seer. And when the story started to change, because it's a remake, not a remaster of Final Fantasy VII, so we're not going to go into story, just look it up. Terrorists try to save planet from company draining the planet of its lifeblood. Oil companies, whatever. When the story started to change, we all went, this is going to be one of those multiverse style things, like time travel. She's seen one of the visions. The thing you do in Final Fantasy VII, the original, is just one of the outcomes. And they play with that kind of thing in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and they just punch you square in the nads about it in Final Fantasy Rebirth. The very opening of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth pretty much goes, yep, these are all just different timelines. Enjoy. Because at the start you play as... do you know of the character Zack? Did you get that far in regular 7?
I first got... Did I get past Golden Saucer? I got that horrible cat thingy, robot thingy.
I
just can't.
Whatever.
Couldn't stand him. I wanted to
Reeve.
Delete him. Yeah, couldn't stand him.
Was it Reeve? No, I can't remember his name now. Either way, the head of city planning in Midgar. It's that guy. The guy that complains, you can't drop the plate on all those people. There's people. And the president's like, I don't give a shit. And he's like, but you should, sir. Yes, that's him.
Oh. What, Cat Sif is him?
Yes.
Oh.
Sorry, spoiler.
No, it's just like why would cats be so irritated then?
Because robots, I suppose. But yeah. Uh yeah. Remake basically went from the start of disc 1 all the way up until the Midgar sequence. The exit of Midgar sequence.
Oh wow, not very far at all then.
No, not at all. That was 50 hours. They did quite a lot. They did kind of open it up because now where they you know they've got all this kind of freedom to go, here's this character, let's flesh out their story a little bit, you know? They did that quite a bit and that was quite nice. Like yeah, you know, like Jesse, Biggs and Wedge, they were kind of expanded on in remake, the other guys in the terrorist group Avalanche. A little bit of Aerith's and her mother's backstory, her adopted mother's backstory, a bunch of different guys on the Sector 7 slums and what's it called? Wall market or whatever it is. I can't remember what it's called. You know, where you have to climb up the wall after doing the getting Cloudy's dress. That's all kind of built up.
Do they basically go, right, you know, every random NPC put in the game just add a little bit of background texture? They're all going to have backstories now. Is it a bit like
that?
Yes,
that is basically what they did. Well, I mean, they started to establish a lot more of the lore because there's Final Fantasy VII has a lot of expanded material. Right, you've got Final Fantasy VII, you've got the films, you've got the side games, all sorts of stuff. They've kind of gone, look, let's just put it all in here. Let's just give you as much information as we can, as quickly as we can, reasonably digestible. Good job. Although I have had some people come in and go, yeah, did you understand that from Remake? Almost, or like, I'm playing this thing in Rebirth. I don't know if maybe I've missed something. And I'm like, no, you haven't missed anything. It wasn't really established in the original game either. So you're not really missing much. Okay. Rebirth starts from when the guys leave Midgar and they go to the town of Calm. Okay, and then they establish a bit of Cloud's backstory, a bit of Sephiroth's backstory, who's like the big villain of the game. How long, Ram, did it take you to go from the walls of Midgar to the part where you catch a chocobo I'll tell you what, no, take it from the moment you leave Calm, the village, to go to the chocobo ranch, to then cross that swamp. How long did that take?
Oh god, I mean, that's a lot.
I mean, as an approximation, how long did it take for you to go from here on the map? Yeah, you walk like a couple of inches on the world map down to the Chocobo Ranch, get your materia, walk another couple of inches, get a Chocobo, and then run due south to cross the swamp.
3 minutes.
How long did that take?
I don't know, 3 minutes. I'm doing it all from memory. I can't even remember doing it, to be honest.
Sure, okay. Well,
10, 15 minutes?
Yeah, we'll say 10, 15 minutes. I'd say it shouldn't take you too much more than, say, maybe half an hour, thereabouts. Yeah. How long do you think it's taken for me to get to that point in Rebirth?
Given that the first game, you only just get out of Midgar at the end, and you get out of Midgar fairly soon in Final Fantasy VII from memory. You go there, it's not like immediately, but it's fairly early on. I reckon it's going to take about 6 hours.
I'm about 11 hours in.
Fucking hell.
And I've only just crossed the bog into the mine.
Have you got to the stage where you go, this is just too much, this is just too long?
I did that with Remake, if I had to be honest with you. Remake was good. Rebirth is good, but there is an awful lot of extra stuff.
It just sounds like the storyline just isn't moving on. It's just getting stuck and gradually they've
Well, I mean, they are establishing a lot more a lot earlier. They are developing the characters a lot more than they did in the original 7. Because again, the original 7 was only, it was what, 3 CDs, 4 CDs, I don't remember now. At about 35 hours in length total. And that's, maybe 50 hours with a bit of side content. They are trying to do some proper world building in this one. Where did this come from? Why is this happening? Not leaving you there for a bajillion years and then finishing it and going, what happened? Why was that a thing? Kind of like, do you remember there's a section in the Nibelheim flashback as you go into Calm where they talk about why Sephiroth went a bit crazy? He went a bit cuckoo?
Yeah, I believe so.
Why he became the bad guy? That's kind of thin, really, when they explain it. But there are a few lines of dialogue in Rebirth that really kind of make you go, oh shit, that's why. He's kind of misinterpreted what's being said here, and he's gone off the deep end. It's something has been said whilst he's found himself in a vulnerable place, and he's just gone with it. It's a very pretty game. Combat has it's not completely changed, but there's now instead of it being like one character with skills, it's an action combat RPG rather than turn-based. Flip to the next character, do some moves, select some skills, do that, move over to the next character, do that. Now you've got synchronization abilities. The entire weapon leveling system has changed from Remake to Rebirth. They've now added in a new mini card game called, I think it's called Queen's Blood or something like that, which I don't like at all, but they've got some quests based around it. There's a lot. And I mean, even if you played Remake and got in on that, Remake was very linear. It was very Final Fantasy 13-esque. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is... Imagine Ghost of Tsushima crossed with Final Fantasy 15. Yeah, it's Final Fantasy 15 with a Ghost of Tsushima coat of paint.
I was going to ask that question because I was going to ask you about the first one. Have they just made it just like an open world RPG? But it sounds like it's not. It's just still a linear progression through.
So again, Final Fantasy VII Remake was more like Final Fantasy 13, where it's just like corridor. Yeah. Here's the quest, go to the place, here's a little zone, maybe some side quests, do that, like a little village or whatever.
It's
or
not
town.
like, because I was going to think maybe is it so long because they just like made it really open world so you can sort of like
no, that's Rebirth. Rebirth is now open world.
Interesting.
Although I will say, traversal in the open world is not fantastic. It's really kind of made Final Fantasy VII look a bit like the world seem a bit weird. Like, you know how there isn't really a lot going on the map of Final Fantasy VII because there isn't. They couldn't. It's the PlayStation 1, right? In this, like, yeah, there are reasons in the lore why there's so much open space between towns and cities, and there's nothing going on in that. But the way they've done
how
this,
else do they feel those random encounters?
Well, they're not random in Rebirth, but in this, like, it's like, oh, here's all the roads have been destroyed between Midgar and Calm. There are no roads or a road. Is there a road between here and here? No. Why? Because there was a war some time ago and we never bothered to rebuild the infrastructure. Yeah. Well, even though that's one of the richest places on the planet. Yeah, but we never bothered to reconnect it all.
Who needs trade? Sorry, was Donald Trump in charge of all these towns?
that seems kind of like
did he put tariffs on Midgard and assume that they would pay for everything?
It does seem to be the way, because just nothing is connected. The world is largely in ruins between towns and cities, and like navigating around the map. Where you think, yeah, I can go down that. You can't. You'll just invisible wall or clip into something. Or you're like, oh, I think I could climb up that. So all of a sudden, like, you know how in older games where you were trying to go from plane to plane, like up something, down something, all that, it would sometimes in an older game they'd just kind of fall and they wouldn't have really an animation to kind of justify that momentum. That's Rebirth. It does that a lot. There's a lot of up and down, and there's no like stumbly animations or anything like that to say that we're actually climbing up anything or down anything. We're just kind of like 1 minute we're there, and then the next minute the character just kind of falls like rigid, and you're on the next kind of plane or whatever, or you can't go that way even though it looks like you can. There's an invisible wall there to stop. It's really, it's not bad, but for considering there have been many other games that have done this better, it feels really kind of cheap. The way that they've just kind of like gone, someone's just in the art department going, we need to make a really pretty world that looks like Final Fantasy VII. Let's do this. It looks very pretty, but to navigate it at times, it's kind of crappy.
Yeah. Doesn't feel logical.
It does and it doesn't, because again, like, you'll have like those magical climbing points where, oh, hey, now you can climb up this thing. Here's some yellow rope, or here's some paint, or here's like a thing that says you can climb here. But why can't I climb that bit that's right next to it? What about that bit that I could jump up, which is approximately the same height as that bit, but I can't go that way? Why can I go that way but not that way?
Because it hasn't got the magic rope bits stuck on the side, where you don't even use the rope, but it's just there to show that you can climb.
It's sometimes it's just really weird right at the start. They really have opened it up, but it does just feel like Final Fantasy 15 with a Final Fantasy 7 coat of paint and then a bit of Ghost of Tsushima slapped on top. Like, here's a bird, follow the bird and it will lead you to a point of interest. Here's a thing, go to there, you'll get another unlock for your character or whatever. It's kind of, I sound like I'm dogging on it because it is actually really quite fun, but it feels like it's not ready. It's another one of those modern AAA games where it looks really pretty, but there are so many things that kind of jank out on it.
Yeah, it's
feel really jank.
A bit soulless.
Yeah,
yeah,
kind of. The character designs are gorgeous. The voice actors have done a cracking job. Combat is okay if you get used to the new stuff that they've tacked into the combat that wasn't in the first 50 hours of the fucking remake trilogy. Some people really like the card game. I think it sucks.
Has it got the bit in it? Like the one bit I do remember Final Fantasy when you used to like finally get into the open world is you go to this town somewhere and there's like they're at war and you have to like do like an RTS type game.
Fort Condor. So Fort Condor is most likely to be in it. That's after where I am now. Right. After 11 hours. Fort Condor, though, the minigame, there is a Fort Condor tower defense style minigame, but that's in the Final Fantasy VII remake game where you're in Midgar. It's just a tabletop RTS that people play as a board game.
Oh.
So, I mean, if you're into that, you could do that if you played on PC. You played the DLC for Final Fantasy VII Remake. But I haven't got to Fort Condor yet. Look, it looks good. I imagine the story's going to be pretty solid. It just feels a bit janky in places. It feels really long. Some of it I really like. The way that they do expand the backstories of certain characters. The way that they've gone and said, hey, this is what such and such used to do before they became a terrorist or whatever. And then they kind of expand on it. Whereas you didn't really have any of this before. Or you might have got a glimpse of it, like, halfway through Final Fantasy VII normally. They're actually really trying to build up a backstory for these characters and actually establish why they're doing what they're doing, rather than just throwing a piece at you partway through the game and then leaving it at that. But
is it too long? Have they gone too far? They've swung the one way. They've like, okay, expanded it, but they've expanded just too much.
I'll tell you when I finish it. I'm gonna say at this point, yes, because I don't think Final Fantasy VII really had that much going on. To be honest, no. What they're doing is, but I don't think that the third part will sell anywhere near as much as the first part when they release part 3. Because I think, you know, what they've gone and done wrong here is by making it so much longer and expanding it and all that, you're increasing the likelihood that someone's just going to bounce off of it.
Yes.
You know, going through original 7 is one thing.
Yeah.
To go through 3 50-hour games, 3 full RPGs, and you can't jump in on Rebirth without playing Remake. You can't jump in on the third one without playing
Mm.
So, you're more likely to lose players the longer you make this. I know they wanted to make money. Square Enix have already said they're losing money on this. Hand over fist.
Well, maybe because they've expanded it to 50-hour gameplay.
That, and they locked it to PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 again.
Oh,
to start
good.
with. They've only just released it on PC. It's been out for over a year.
Oh, so the fact that you can't carry your characters across is just insane.
Yeah, you unlock materia and stuff. Like, you unlock stuff, but other than that, that and certain materia is a pre-order fucking bonus.
What?
Certain items and materia are pre-order bonuses.
Fucking hell.
Yep, it's wonderful. And not just pre-order bonuses. Depending on what version you buy, you get different materia.
Oh, they're doing the Star Trek Online situation.
Yep. And but
Which
I will
means
say,
either all that material is going to have to be useless, or one of it's going to be overpowered that everybody's going to go, I wish I bought the GameStop version or the Amazon version.
Yeah. So I haven't really gone huge into it. If you've played any of the other games I've mentioned, you'll kind of get a groove for it, which actually makes me feel old, because where I think a lot of this stuff is common knowledge, I then realise that a lot of people are only now in their late teens, early 20s playing these games. And I'm like, well, surely you know about XYZ. Of course they don't, because they weren't born.
No.
I'm old.
Yeah.
I will say it's worth a play. The music's good. Graphically, it's pretty good. Gameplay is okay. It is stretched out. It's like reading a good book. You have to be willing to sit down and sink your teeth into it. Rebirth is also much better on lower end hardware than Remake.
Good.
It seems to at least at launch, Remake now is way better than it was at launch, because there was lots of stuttering and all that on PC. Rebirth is much cleaner, but there are still plenty of things not quite right with it, like textures not quite loading in, and even if you've got a decent PC, people are still having trouble with it, but it's a lot better than what Remake was to start with. So, yeah, it's launch Steam Deck verified, it plays alright on the deck. The idea that you can play a game like Rebirth and Remake on the go is still absolutely amazing to me. I do worry, though, that if they make the third one another 50 hours...
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit rough.
I also think, do they risk diluting the story of the original game to the point where basically it's almost like goes into the background? Is that a risk there? Does it so you feel like... Because obviously the first game, the storyline was quite tight, quite moved along quite nicely, and it had some bits went off and expanded areas, but in general it was quite a succinct story. Is this diluting the game too much? Is this diluting the story with all this extra gump? Are you just almost like forgetting about the main plot?
No, it's still there, just it's moving along very, very, very slowly.
Yeah.
It's still there. I'd like to say it won't, but I can't guarantee. As it stands, I can't guarantee that.
No.
But then I imagine there are going to be bits that like turn up later, and I'm going to go, "Oh my god, that was genius!" Because they're kind of dangling things on hooks in front of you.
Yeah.
The idea is, what the? I mean, let's be fair. Final Fantasy VII was quite loose. It was quite loose because you started off, we're a terrorist organization that's going to stop Shinra Electric Company.
All three of us.
Yeah, well, there were more, but unfortunately. And then, well, because that's something else they don't establish in Original 7, is that there are actually more cells of Avalanche. It's not just the guys in Sector 7.
Well, it makes sense, I suppose.
But they do build on that in Remake and Rebirth. So you don't have to have played Final Fantasy VII before Crisis Core, 7, Dirge of Cerberus, watched the animated spin-offs and stuff like that. You don't have to consume all that. They've kind of put it all in. But you start off, you're going to fight the Electric Company, and it's like, hang on, Sephiroth's a bad guy. And you're like, okay, wait, so are we ignoring the electric company now and going after him? Yeah! And that's how it went in 7, and that's how it's going now, still. But, yeah. Be right back, mate.
No worries. Oh, well, while Skazz is away, we shall pause and wait for him. Of course, he got the headsets on now. He took them off, so he can't hear anything that would do. So we can be as rude as we like about him. It doesn't matter because he can't hear it. Oh no, he's back. And that's all the reasons why I absolutely can't stand working with Skazz. It's a nightmare.
There we go.
Oh, I don't think you heard that. Damn.
No.
Oh. I tried.
What was he supposed to hear?
I was trying to time it so that when you got back, I'll just put, and this is all the reasons why I hate Skazz. I was trying to time it just right. It didn't work, so.
Love you too, man.
Yeah.
Try again. Try again.
Never. So I suppose one last question then is, if you're a big fan of Final Fantasy, is this actually worth like playing through again, or do you think if you love the original, do you think this is just going to possibly taint it a little bit, or do you think this is worth for the sort of expanded lore?
It's a mix. It is a mix. It's a Marmite game. There are a lot of folks out there who really love what they've done with Remake. They really love what they're doing with Rebirth. They're really enjoying what the new voice actors and that are doing with the characters, the way they've expanded all the lore, the way they've cleaned some bits up. But then there are other people going, this ain't my Final Fantasy VII. I'm still sat on the fence. When I'm playing 7 Remake and Rebirth, I'm thoroughly enjoying myself. But when things start to veer off, I'm like, this isn't how it goes. This isn't how it goes. I won't lie, they hooked me on Rebirth right at the start. They show a scene with the character Zack and Cloud making it to Midgar. And I was like, fucking yes! Amazing! Fucking, this is so cool. And then, we did the whole Nibelheim flashback between Cloud and Sephiroth and Tifa. And then we got into the open world bit and I was like, oh god, here we go. They started doing the whole quest system to make money and showing like the card minigame, and I'm like, I don't need this.
Yeah.
I don't need this. I just want to play my game. I just want Final Fantasy VII, but again, it's not a remaster, it's a remake.
Yeah.
So it's worth trying, but understand you better be willing to put in the time. If you're a dad with kids and you got a full-time job, this could take you a while to get through.
If you're the sort of person who only play like games for like 2-3 hours a week, you've got a long time of waiting to get through this lot.
Yeah, at this point, I wouldn't even bother because some story beats can take hours. It's not like, here's the thing, do the thing. Well, like, in as you said, in the original Final Fantasy VII, you go from point A to point B in 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That could take hours. If you want to see all of it.
Yeah.
And make sure that you've got all the information on the other characters. Like, have I done the quest for this guy? Oh, shit. They're establishing part of this lore that I remember from this game. Oh, my God. If I hadn't have done that quest, I wouldn't have seen that. If you want to get all of these little bits, it's going to take you so fucking long. So long. Like I said, I've been playing for 10, 11 hours, and I've only just crossed from Calm to the big snake and the chocobos over the marshes. That shouldn't take much more than 20 minutes.
Wow.
It's mental. Even, do you remember? Well, you probably don't. If you don't remember the riding the chocobos across the marsh to go through the cave before Fort Condor's minigame. Actually, just you come out of the cave, then you go south to get to Fort Condor.
Right.
That cave takes for fucking ever. Like a cave that was literally little bit of a story beat. You're out. Now let's go to. I think this is like let's go to Junin or whatever, which is on the.
Is that the cave
West
you go
Coast.
through to get to where you get to like Red 13's like backstory bit? His villagey.
No, you're thinking of Cosmo Canyon. I'm nowhere near that. Cosmo Canyon is in this, by the way, which is going to be terrifying. Well, let's put it this way: the area between Midgar and the Chocobo Ranch and the swamp, which you don't remember, is so big they've got fast travel points on it.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. They really have. They've upped the scale, but because combat isn't random, now it seems almost tricky to level up. Because I'm getting to quests and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you should be level 22 by the time you get to this quest. I'm like, I'm not level 22. Oh shit. And then I get steamrolled because I'm not prepped for it, kind of thing.
So is it a bit grindy then? Do you have to do a lot of grinding to get up to your level?
No, but you have to. If you're not willing to maybe do some of the side content, you might find it a bit tricky.
Yeah, I mean, if
it
you
is
engage with
geared
like,
to make you do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you engage with like the sort of side quests and stuff, will that sort of like get you to level, or do you have to randomly...
It'll get you close enough.
Yeah, so there's still a bit of just going out and attacking random mobs to get yourself to where you need to be. Okay.
Yeah. Because I've skipped over a shit ton of the mechanics, and I'll be honest with you, I've skipped it because I don't know how the fuck half of it works. There are lots of new levels on there. It's not just character levels. You've got party levels. You've got weapon levels. You've got all sorts of stuff going on. You've got synergy attacks and perfect guard and all this fluff. I don't know. It's a much fatter Final Fantasy VII.
Sounds it.
Yeah, I'm skipping over a lot because at the end of the day, this is a story game. If I go too hardcore on the story, you won't have much of a reason to play it.
No.
But it is a big old action RPG based on Final Fantasy VII, but it ain't Final Fantasy VII.
No, I suppose that's the best description you could have is it's based on, rather than a revitalization.
If anyone has played Final Fantasy 15 and then maybe dabbled in Ghost of Tsushima, same kind of thing. Although Ghost of Tsushima had a better open world, even though that was empty as fuck too. Yeah.
It's pretty much makes a TV series based on a film. It's just had a lot of more backstory to fill it up.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
What about yourself, Ram? What have you been playing now that I've rabbited on for 12 hours?
No, you're fine. You're playing. So I've been playing a game called it's a puzzle game. It's called Metrico Plus.
How is that?
It's an interesting sort of puzzle game. It's meant to be based around infographics. I know it sounds weird. It isn't really based around infographics. They say it is, but it isn't really. It's more of a puzzle. Interestingly, I believe when I've sort of looked into it, I believe it actually started life as a it was originally a Vita game.
Right.
And because in the original game, there were... Because did the Vita have, like, motion controls?
Yes, it did, yeah. Gyro and back and front touchscreens.
Because in the original game, there were levels based around using those motion controls, which have always been removed for the PC version. And I believe there's also levels based around using, like, the light sensor on the Vita as well. It talked about...
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's it's a little puzzle game. One of those. It's that genre of indie puzzle. Well, I say indie of puzzle games, which are very simple. The graphics are very simple, but sort of heavily stylized. So the world is basically very blocky, but it's got like trees in the background, just a cone type thing. That sort of stylization. But so the thing about it is the way the game generally works is everything you. Most of the puzzles revolve around the fact that your movement affects sort of the world you're in. So if you run along, there'll be like platforms and stuff that will move in sequence with you, and they only move in one direction. So you may if you like go right left to right, they'll move. But if you then try and go right to left, they won't. So you have to be so the puzzle's based around like you mustn't move too far in one direction, otherwise you'll get stuck. There'll be ones that are based on jumping. Some of the platforms will each platform will have like a either they'll have like a XY coordinates on marks on it, or it'll have like a percentage, or it'll be like an out of thing, so like maybe 2 out of 3 type thing. Generally speaking, those sort of 2 out of 3 ones are like only ever go up. So let's say everyone's a platform that goes up when you jump. Every time you jump, it will go like up to a max of 3 times, and it stops. Right. So I'll give you one example of a fairly late on puzzle, which it took me a while to figure out how to do this. There are basically 4 columns that you need to get up. Each column can have a hazard, can go up a certain number of times, and it's once they go up, they're up. They can't go back down. But to get them up, you have to do different things. So one column will go up by I think it's just jumping. One will go up and there's like 3 sort of hazards. There's like a hole in the ground where you fall to your death. There's like a thing that comes down and will squish you, and there's like a little monstery thing. One column will only go up if you get killed by the monster. One will only go up if you get killed by falling down the hole, and one will go up if you like get squished by the thing. So you have to die a certain number of times in the correct order, or the correct amount of times, so that you can build stairs by raising up a certain number of times. So like the monster, you only want to die by the monster once, because that puts the first like stair up once. If you get kicked by the monster again, it'll go up again, and you then be useless because you can't jump on top of it. The second stair, you want to fall on the hole twice, so that goes up twice. You want to get squished 3 times, and then perhaps you want to jump like 4 times to get the last one up. And so you get these like little elevation going on. And so you have to sort of plan it across. Each sort of like world introduces like a new mechanics. The first world is just the blocks moving round. And it basically any sort of like interaction you've got is just walls doing jump. Then the second world, I think, introduces being able to reset. So you'll pass like a checkpoint. The game resets if you die anyway, but you'll pass a checkpoint. You can like force a reset. And then the third one, you finally get the ability to shoot little pellets and stuff at the enemies. But again, a lot of the puzzles are tied into like, so there's this final bit I need to jump over, and the final sort of platform you jump on, it moves up every time I fire a pellet. If I fire more than 4, it'll be too high for me to jump. So I've got 4 shots, but I only need to kill 2 enemies. They take 2 shots each, so basically I can't miss these 4 shots. Otherwise, I can't do the level. It's all sort of tied into like that. It's there are quite a few points where it's like, I just don't know how to do this. I just can't figure out it's a lot of it's about sequencing, getting the right order to do things in. There's a couple that are slightly time based, but in general you just need to get the correct sequence. I mean, if you fuck the sequence up, you're fucked. You've got to start from scratch. I think the 4th world introduces like a secondary reset. So your normal resets when you first unlock like the reset ability, it resets like the whole puzzle. Later on, it will only reset your position. So the puzzle, whatever you change in the puzzle, will stay the same. And there'll be another bit of control, which basically allows you to then reset the whole puzzle. So another example where this becomes useful is there's one puzzle where I'm up high, and there are 2 pillars. Pillar A only goes down. It needs to get out of the way to go down. Only goes down whilst I'm in the air falling.
Right.
Pillar B is at the bottom of the ground. Every time I hit the ground, it goes up. And if it goes up more than like twice, you've got to be able to jump over it. So you need to get... But pillar A won't fall all the way down before you hit the ground. So what you have to do is you have to jump, and as you're falling down, before you hit the ground, reset, so you bounce back to your reset point, and then pillar A won't reset, and you can do it like multiple times and reset like mid-air, and then you can get pillar A down, and then you can jump over the other one, hopefully.
That's neat.
It is. A lot of the puzzles are really neatly done. They are very sort of like, you have to think about them, and they are, in general, they're not like timing based, they are just puzzle based. There are a couple which rely about some degree of time, which I don't like. But yeah, it's very neat. Stylization, art style wise, I really like it. Each sort of like world is, even though it's basically all still a very blocky, like basic primitive shapes and stuff, cones and spheres and stuff. They all manage to feel slightly differently. They'll change the color scheme. There's one which is all like wireframes, which is quite neat. It's a really simple little side scroller game. It's also got that sort of like strangeness of you are a apparently person. You only see like a shadow of them, and each like levels up, and he'll like sort of get exhausted and like collapse on the ground, have to sort of breathe off, and then occasionally he'll go like come across like there'll be like between each like world there's like a sort of like door with mirrors. He'll open it and he'll look at himself, and he's like his body will just like float up into the air, and he'll go through and there'll be some weird sphere field which like absorb him, and he has to sort of like whatever power he's unlocked he has to sort of like use to unlock it. It's all very strange, very indie.
Sure.
I think you are required to have a lot of LSD to make these sort of games because they're all really strange. But the concept's really neat. It's fairly. Let me see what price it's on Steam at the moment. Let's have a look. It's currently £10.59 on Steam.
A bargain.
Yeah, it's a fairly old. I mean, it's a 2016 it was released, so it's nearly a decade old.
Don't.
But then you see the thing is that because of the art style, it's by doing deliberately simple art style, it doesn't age.
Yeah, sure. When you start to try when games started to go kind of hyper realistic, sarcastic air quotes back during like the Xbox 360 kind of era, PS3 era, they start to try and make things look more realistic. It really falls apart because it just looks shite as time goes on.
Yeah. Yes. It ages.
Yeah, very, 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 very badly. Whereas a heavily stylized game, I mean, maybe you just tweak the lighting a little bit if you were to remake it these days, and you've got a gorgeous looking game again.
Yeah. Well, it's so simple. There's so little to it. It just sort of, it works.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I enjoyed my time. I've got up to about World 4. I think there's 6 worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I got to about World 4 is where I got to, and it's so far. It's not a long game. It's only about, I think you can do it in about 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that perhaps £11 for 9-year-old game that takes about 3 hours is a little bit steep.
To be honest with you, mate, I don't think it's that bad. Considering we had this discussion the other night, considering how many people make games these days, and we still bellyache about paying £70 for a game. I don't necessarily think it's the time that you get out, because we've all done that. We've all gone, if I get XYZ number of hours out of a game, it's been worth it.
Yeah.
It should be more a case of, have I enjoyed myself? That's it. Because I used to do the whole, well, if it costs me this much, I have to get at least this many hours out of it to make it worth it. And that is an incredibly terrible metric to base a game on.
Yeah, do you know what? You're not wrong at all. You are absolutely, I can't argue with that. That's
so because I mean, at the end of the day, the guys have to get some cash.
Yeah,
and it's if you played the game and enjoyed it, whether it be £5, £10, £50, whatever. If you've enjoyed yourself, it was worth it.
Yeah,
you could spend £70 on a game and find it's complete enough to dog shite.
And actually, I said to say it to you yesterday that I would easily spend. I mean, not be £5, £10. I'm going to have a kebab for tomorrow night. I'll be spending a lot more than £10 on that kebab.
Yeah, you're damn right. I mean, me and my mate The Wald have got this groove where if it costs less than a Saturday night takeout for the family, then it's basically just piss away money, which is again a very terrible way to look at it.
I was going to say, for your family, I've been around you when you have takeouts. For your family, I mean, that's a new PC nearly every week.
Yeah, near enough. Or it was, it was. But not going to lie, but like sometimes you say, oh yeah, if it's like less than say £30 or whatever, then it's it's not really that much money considering. Again, you could go and spunk out at Mickey's.
Yeah.
In a few minutes, and what have you got to show for that other than a heap of shit?
I think even like a say a Big Mac meal is like £9 these days.
Yeah, so the idea that you've gone and bought a game that you can play for 3 or 4 hours, that's pretty good
No, that's a very
in the
that's
grand scheme of
actually
things.
no, that's a very good point. I take back my criticism. But it's just how we view things like differently in terms of valuations, how we view things, really, isn't it? So
Well, yeah, it's weird that we've not. But the thing is, though, it's weird that we haven't adjusted value with the times, like inflation.
no,
We had this discussion last night that a game like back in the day, game devs, a studio might have only been between like 10 and 50 people, and we'd barely ache about paying 50 quid for a game. We've been paying 50 quid for games since I was a child.
well,
Back in the 80s,
I
where
bought
teams were maybe 5 people.
well when I was thinking about this, they straight off. I actually got the tab open still. I was thinking about this earlier today. So back in 2001, when I bought FIFA 3, that was £35. Okay,
Yeah.
which was actually quite cheap for a game back then. Actually, wasn't.
Oh God, yeah, it was, yeah. I mean,
So-
like I said, Asteroids on the Game Boy back in the early 90s was £50 from Boots.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, if you calculate inflation, FIFA 3 would you pay near enough £65 would be the value of FIFA 3. So that means that FIFA 3 is basically now nearly the price of what an average game is anyway. So actually, it's cheap. A £50 guess what £50. So a £50 game now would cost you 92 quid.
Yeah, which is, I mean, some games do, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. What people don't like, though, is that we're being paid more, but our money is worth less. We are so used to things being a certain price without factoring in that everything behind that price has gone up.
Yeah.
Why is it that a pair of shoes that I used to buy in high school and would last me forever cost me 20 quid back when the average wage was what, like £4, £5? Now the minimum wage is what, 11?
I think I
How can I still buy that pair of shoes for 20 quid? Oh wait, they fall apart in a couple of weeks.
I also think people tend to realise, actually forget. We tend to remember the things that seem quite cheap at the time but seem more expensive now. But I think people forget, they say it was a relationship to earnings. I mean, I was talking to my dad and he was saying when he first started being an apprentice, he bought a pair of Levi's. It's one of the first things he bought was a pair of Levi's. And that was 2 weeks worth of wages.
Yeah, pay was bollocks.
He was a full-time apprentice and he was in a good industry as well. As the shipyards at the time, that was a good industry to be in. And it was 2 weeks worth of wages. So if you assume the average minimum wage, that would be like a pair of Levi's costing you what, £400-500 now?
Yeah.
If you go by minimum apprentice wages, that's insane.
But no one's willing to pay it.
No.
So corners have to be cut.
Yeah, people don't. But you can still buy a decent pair of clothes for a lot less than that. So the money does go further, but in certain areas where it gets expensive, I think, is things like food and utilities are the ones that have increased the most, relatively speaking, to your buying power. But in terms of like consumer goods, like just general consumer goods, I think people forget actually how, back in the day, we're going to sound old farts now. Back in the day, people bought like clothes and stuff. They probably only had like a couple pair of jeans.
God, yeah. And I've got a wardrobe full of clothes. My parents never had.
No.
Wardrobes full of clothes. I've got multiple pairs of shoes. My parents didn't have multiple pairs. You had like one good expensive pair of whatever, and that lasted you. Kind of thing.
You might have like, say, if you worked if you were in the trade, you might have a pair of work boots, and then some normal shoes, and that'd be it. You wouldn't have any between. Whereas, I mean, I've even myself who doesn't have a lot, a lot of shoes. I've got like 5 different pairs.
I was going to say I've got a pair of trainers and 2 pairs of boots.
I've got 2 pairs of work boots. The only reason I've got 2 pairs of work boots is when I used to work at DIY shop. Actually, I could say now because they're gone. Homebase, they're gone now, so I can't get in trouble for it anymore. When I used to work at Homebase, I had a pair of shoes for there, and I had a pair of work shoes for the farm because obviously farm ones get very messy, and you don't want to
fuck them up, so you make sure you have a different pair.
So I've got 2 pairs now, and eventually one will go down to one. I'll have 1 pair. I've got a pair of nice shoes, a pair of sandals, and I think some slip-on shoes for like around the house, and that's it. I want a pair of slippers if you want to count slippers as a pair of shoes. I wouldn't call slippers as shoes, but they do cover your feet.
Well, let's think of it this way as well. Like, a console back in the day could cost 200-300 quid. I think I remember a time when like the N64 was like £300 on launch, and yet people still complain the idea they have to pay like 500 quid for a PlayStation.
I'll say, wasn't the PlayStation 2 about 300 quid when it launched?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, around that time they were about 300
quid. And that launched 2000.
Yeah, 2000, 2001.
Well, let's see what £300 in 2001 and 2000 will be today. So today, £300 would be 560 quid. So, actual fact, PlayStation 5 it's actually a bit cheaper, pound for pound, because they're about, I think, £500 max.
Yeah.
By itself. Because that was PS2 without any games or any memory card.
Nope.
A controller. So I think a Virgin PlayStation 5 is about £500, something like that. I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So it's actually cheaper.
Yeah.
So I think people just see numbers go up.
We still just we've looked at the numbers go up without realizing that all of the numbers have gone up.
Yeah. Yes.
We're still like, well, I remember paying XYZ. That's well too expensive. It's like that's not true.
Yeah.
It feels like there's some weight to it. It's not like house prices where wages have doubled and house prices have like quadrupled.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
there's a problem there. But as far as games are concerned, for the last 40 years, games have been around £50, regardless of how many people have worked on them, how much work is taken to make them. They've been £50.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I want my games on a sale. Guys, please. Games are infinitely more complicated than they were way back in the day, and we were happy to pony up the cash back then. Yeah. Stop it.
Do you think
gaming is an expensive hobby?
Yeah.
And games have gone downhill, but corners have to be cut to keep things at that price.
Yeah. I mean, they are expensive and justifying cost. I mean, before I had as many expenses as I do now, when I was younger, I used to think buying a game a month was a fairly reasonable thing to do.
Yep.
I used to buy a game like every month. I'd buy a new game. Some months I'd like, I'm not sure what to buy. I'll buy that one. Even if I particularly wasn't that interested, it was like, I'll just buy a game a month or so. That seems to be sort of the thing to do.
Yeah.
Now I very rarely buy new games. Because it's like I could buy that, but I could put that money onto something else.
Should also note, gaming is a hobby, and I will say, as we've gotten older, we have decided to indulge ourselves a little too much. I really do think this is the case. When when you talk about your dad and he bought himself a pair of Levi's because he got some good money coming in. We pay, we want everything.
Yeah. We
can't go without for even a second. We want Netflix. We want Amazon. We want to get stuff from Just Eat. We want fucking Humble subscriptions. We want Disney subscriptions. We want a PlayStation. We want all the games at whatever price. It's like, Jesus Christ, guys. Oh, but it's so expensive to buy a game now. I haven't got any money. It's a hobby.
Yeah.
All of these things are supposed to be hobbies. You're not going to die if you don't get a new PlayStation game or a new PC game.
No.
You're not going to die if you haven't got your fucking your Paramount Plus subscription. You might, but it's unlikely. We do tend to spend a lot more on things we, sarcastic air quotes, need, and so things are a lot tighter or feel a lot tighter.
Yeah.
But I think that most of it is reasonable. Another reason, actually, why, and I have gone a bit errant bard on it, where I sometimes sound like I'm a bit anti-wokey. Because Bard is very... if Bard was still on the podcast, bless his soul, he would probably jump up and down and say how modern gaming is shit because insert random group here. I'm more of the opinion modern gaming is kind of shite, AAA gaming at least is kind of shite, because we're running out of ideas. It's just a game I played 20 years ago with a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, I mean, how many
It's either a
original,
sequel to something I've already played, or mechanically is something I've already played, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But by the same token, though, I understand that a lot of these companies are looking at it going, oh my God, it's really expensive to make these things.
Yeah.
What sold before? And in the case of the people arguing against, sorry, I've gone off on a tangent here, but for all the people who are arguing against diversity, equity, inclusion, the wokey stuff and all that, if a company gets offered a couple $100,000 to put some random shit in or employ a group of people, game's really expensive to make. They're not upping the price of the game very much.
No.
I think if that studio could afford to hire a couple of devs for a couple of years because of a grant, dude, take it.
Yeah.
Get the fucking game out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a fact that games are. I agree. I don't think it's anything to do with like DRM like that. What makes one game bad. I think it's the fact that they can't fail. They rely on games have to sell. If you're making the new FIFA, it has to sell.
Well, think about it. Think of all the studios that have closed down, and it's not the whole go woke, go broke thing. It's just that they ain't selling.
No,
like you can bankrupt a studio in one bad game these days.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you had a team of 10 people. It wasn't costing you a lot to make a game. No. You'd make buckets of cash. Now it's costing them millions and millions and millions of pounds, hundreds of millions of pounds to make these games. They're not charging a huge amount of money for them compared to, as we've said, as inflation goes. They should be charging a lot more. It's a lot riskier for them to make games.
Just watch the credits of any game you watch and look at people. I mean,
dude, fucking Cyberpunks were like fucking nearly 200 years long.
Well, I timed Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. The credits on that were 25 minutes long. And you just look at those people and like, they just like you just look and think, how many of these jobs are actually, in the nicest possible way, actually required?
Not as many as you'd think.
No, I mean. There's so much they spend in. Just like every country's got like its whole marketing department. You've got every marketing in every different country. It's like fucking hell. There's just so many people involved. Like surely these are all.
Games development is incredibly bloated now. It is very, very, very bloated, and I will probably argue actually that there are a lot of devs out there who don't necessarily know what they're doing, and I don't mean that in a nasty way, but there used to be a time when you used to have to build your own tools to build the game.
Yeah.
Now a lot of guys just go, we're going to download Unity, Unreal
5, yeah,
we're just going to pull all of these assets from all of these places, tweak them a bit. Oh, look, lighting, I can just click a button now and it'll do all that. I don't have to, customize it all. It'll just do it for me. A lot of games end up looking like Valheim without the lighting.
Yeah. And the thing is,
they just look shite.
I also think there's a certain, this is something that sort of can't necessarily be avoided, but there's a certain culture of, if you're like someone who is doing a Unreal 5 game and you use some assets you bought off the asset store in your game, people get up in arms about it. Because you bought those and didn't make them. It's like, can you imagine if you criticised every film person because they had the audacity to go film the same location someone has filmed in previously?
Oh, mate, that'd be.
You know what I mean?
Whoops.
With films and stuff and TV production stuff, they're like places which just have sets which you go to again and again and again, and they'll appear in different films. And particularly like outside, you can that church has been used in a dozen different films.
Wasn't it like Universal Studios? They had that lot for Back to the Future. They used it in Back to the Future, but it turned out in like tons of other films as well.
Yeah.
So we just shot it from this angle, but this is the same clock tower that was in Back to the Future kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's reusing assets, but that's sensible. Whereas if you dare to reuse an asset, even if it's like just a sequel, and you always dare to use asset. Oh no, you need to make a whole new model of that sweet wall with the sweet wall in the sky can't be the same asset as living. You can't just upscale it. It has to be like a whole new model. This is insane.
Once upon a time they used to.
You're reinventing the wheel every fucking time. You're reinventing everything.
I will say as well that some of the guys that do make games these days, some of them, I'm not trying to be rude, they're just not very good at it. You've got a lot of starter guys coming in. They've just come out of uni. They're maybe in their 20s or whatever. They're just not very good.
No.
Or, unfortunately, they've been given some tools that will baby them through the process. And they're just... Once upon a time, you had to really know how to get the most out of a system.
Yeah.
Now you click a button and you throw horsepower at it.
Well, Unreal 5.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. It's an Unreal 5 problem. But again, that's kind of what I'm saying. It's not necessarily the dev's fault. It's just like a lot of these kids, they're actually going to school and only learning these engines.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Learn the principles. Going to school and learning how to program and build a game in one engine is like going to art school and only being taught how to paint in one art style.
Yeah, it's and like I say, I don't necessarily think it's any one group's fault. It's expensive.
It's complexity,
and you'll get
as well.
who you think you can get. Yeah. I mean, well, it's kind of like back when you look at like going from Super Nintendo to like PlayStation and Sega Saturn. It's like when we moved to 3D. My God, the like devs of the time were like, holy shit, how do we do this? There is just so much more that we have to figure out to make this thing look like and work like it probably should.
Yeah.
On this platform to justify this hardware kind of thing. Like, how do we get the best out of this? It's very, very difficult, very, very complicated. I understand that now a lot of these guys, as I say, have just got drag and drop tools. They don't necessarily optimize as well as they should if they even knew how. But it's fucking hard. And also trying to get that one guy from over there in the art department to get to talk to the guy over here that's like tweaking the engine to make this thing go into that thing to do. There's just so many different layers that you have to try and account for.
Next time,
the fact that we even get a game these days is a miracle.
Time you criticize something like the Atari version of ET. Bear in mind that version of ET was written in the Atari version of Assembly by one guy.
Yeah,
just bear that in mind.
Assembly, man.
The Atari version of it, anyway, by a guy.
Just
bear that in mind when you're sitting there, you're complaining, you're using, as you say, you're also rendering Unreal 5 or Unity components. Does all the stuff you need under the hood. You never see it.
Yeah.
Just bear that in mind.
My kids have already made themselves first-person shooters in both Unity and Unreal, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, how much of that code did you write yourself? And they're like, huh?
Unreal comes with a template for first-person shooter. You literally just have to tweak it.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. For so many games like out now, they're like, oh god, this game looks like it could have been on a PlayStation 3. It could have been, but there's also a lot of crunch. There are huge budgets, but if they're going to have to cut corners to get things to release on time, E.T. was a complete shit show written in assembly because it had to be released on this time.
Yeah.
Look, I think they actually kind of went back and reworked E.T. from like an assembly. They went through it and they were like, yeah, all you have to do is tweak this and this, and once you understand how it works, it's great. It works great, but it was just rushed. There was no polish on it.
Well, you try debugging assembly.
Well, and again though, but even with like modern games designers, trying to sort out all of that shite, like with all of those people, hundreds of people, thousands of people, trying to iron out all of these systems.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. It is very bloated.
It's a miracle games such as Cyberpunk that they've been patched are as reliable as they are. The fact they don't break down.
And they're still broken as fuck, but they're great.
Yeah, but because you just can't. Games aren't real life, so you can't count every edge case.
It's all held together with spit and cable ties, and the fact that stuff all works in sequence as it should at all ever is a miracle.
And
because if you sneezed on it, it would just fall to pieces.
Yeah, and you've also got the trick of you need to make sure that your game loop runs in a certain amount of time, because if it takes too long to run your game loop, your game will stutter, will be slow, and neighbor will think it's shit.
Yep.
So.
Oh god, yeah.
Make sure you've got to get all those edge cases controlled and tested for every time. when that situation occurs, you just cover all of those cases in like a game loop.
and you've got to work all that out in milliseconds. You're not even
Yeah.
rocking seconds here. You have to calculate this stuff down to the frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so you have to optimize to the frame.
And bear in mind, most if you're aiming for 60 FPS, I can't remember what that works. So what's that? How many milliseconds works out? What, so 100 milliseconds? Let me do some maths here. It's 1,000 divided by 60. I should be able to do that, but it's 1,000.
You can do it, Ram.
It is 1,000 milliseconds in a second, is it? So you've got 16 milliseconds.
16.6.
16.6, yeah.
For 60 FPS.
Let's call it 17 to round it up to a nice figure. You'll be slightly below 70 FPS. You'll be able to do the American market with their silly refresh rate on their TVs. That's just insane.
Yeah. You have to get everything to work in that time frame.
Yeah.
16 milliseconds. 16.6 milliseconds for 60 frames a second. You have to get it done. Every tick has to function on every 16 milliseconds. An action has to happen, has to be calculated, has to work. If not, you will get stutters. Things will break. There are games where physics completely falls apart if it doesn't calculate everything in the environment in 16.66 milliseconds.
In the case of Unreal, the physics, you have basically there are two times in Unreal, two like loops. There is delta time, which varies. And then there's the physics time. The physics time is fixed, because if it wasn't fixed, it fucks up all the physics calculations.
Yeah, sure, of course.
That's why there are certain things things can only move so fast in an Unreal game, because after a point the physics break because it goes too fast for the loop, and you'll get situations where it'll clip. That's how things end up clipping through things and stuff because it gets too fast for the loop.
Well, it's like so I had an example recently. I was playing Metroid Prime Remastered on Nintendo Switch. I was testing out a new Switch dock and capture card combo. And the Switch is an interesting piece of hardware in that it runs at two different clock speeds.
Okay.
So if you've got it in handheld mode, it runs at one resolution and clock speed.
That makes sense.
If you put it in its dock, to save battery life. When you put it in its dock and it's getting power, it boosts its own clocks and increases the resolution that it renders everything at.
Okay.
And if it doesn't have necessarily enough power when you put it into the dock, it doesn't always necessarily boost up as high as it should. You won't know this though unless you play a game where the animations are linked to the frame rate or the physics is linked to the frame rate.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is when you'll notice it if you play a game that is like this and it's running under 60 FPS, if it's all locked to 60 FPS, the game will run in slow motion. It won't stutter. It will just slow down.
Yeah.
So like for, Metroid Prime Remastered, if the system isn't running quite up to speed, it will just slow down. Not stutter, slow down. Every action will happen, but if you're running at half speed, then it will go 16.6 milliseconds, double it up. There you go. Everything then gets longer, slower to make sure that the physics still works. Street Fighter 6 does the exact same thing. Tekken does the exact same thing. If it's not running at that frame rate to match up with the physics engine, it just slows it down so it can still perform all of those actions in time.
Yeah. I'm playing some old school games on we bought like a CD back in the day when we died, old Packard Bell. We bought like a CD that had like sort of 20 classic games on them. Trouble was, half the games didn't use the concept of delta time. So they just the loop happens and calculators happen on that loop, but then they didn't put a limit on the loop either. So, for example, I'm not sure how legal this was, but it had Pac-Man on it, and Pac-Man had no frame limiter, which meant the ghost basically moved at lightning speed. And it was impossible because there's just no limit to how fast the game could execute it. It was obviously programmed for certain hardware that ran at a consistent speed. There was no on a your Pentium. I think it was a 166 we had at the time. It was so fast. Yeah, there was no limit to loop. So
a friend and I had the exact same issue years ago. Largely the same thing. we were programming our own kind of games engine, our own games design tools in Basic. But he was running on a 486 and I was running on a Pentium 1. So my machine was significantly faster. And until he implemented a frame rate limit to tie everything to a certain frame rate, to lock it to a certain frame rate, he would code on his machine, test it would run fine, bring it over to mine, and everything was just running through everything was broken because it was running too fast. Really fun to see, really interesting when you realise that's how it works.
And this is why they invented Delta time.
So that's there you go. There's your computer program lesson for the day. Your games dev lesson.
Yeah, very important.
It's a lot more complicated than you think.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when people go, well, it's really easy to port XYZ from this to that. No, it isn't.
No.
Could be a completely different architecture. You know, just never quite as easy as you think.
The instruction set, yeah. Yeah, let's move from a Pentium to an ARM processor. Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck. Have fun with that. Just recode the whole base level of the game.
That's a bit above my pay grade, Ram.
Yeah, that's what Proton's for, isn't it?
yeah.
Before we wrap up, we have a comment. I can't remember how many months ago since we last had a comment on a podcast. Jimmy
never happens.
Has commented, "I will die on a hill defending the Atari ET game."
Now, Divine is very heavy into Atari and the classic games of the 70s, early 80s. He and I used to do runs of Berserk, Yars, all sorts of stuff, really. But like Divine is very much of the early kind of computer days, the home computer revolution. And yeah, he's right. Like a lot of those old games are absolutely fantastic, especially for the time.
Yeah.
And when you look at what they had to do to get that stuff to do what it did, mental. The fact half the tricks that people did to get Commodore games to look and sound like they did went even beyond the schematics of the chips that they were using. They're like, oh, I found a bug. Well, if we do this, then we can make it do this.
Yeah.
Which kind of looks like this. It isn't really this, but it looks like this, or it sounds like this. Like some of the music, they were able to like make these really weird kind of arpeggiated whatevers.
Well,
Commodore music is very special. Very, a Commodore song, a Commodore 64 song when you hear it, right? But some of the tricks they do, oh yeah, we just made it do this really fast, and it made it sound like it was multiple notes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was just like a note being played really quickly.
Yeah.
You know.
Isn't that what frequency there is? Makes the notes sound different to how fast they're played.
Reasons.
It's like the old days we used to tilt cartridges.
Yeah.
Right then, well, unless there's anything else from yourself, Skazz, I think we should wrap this one up.
Yeah, sorry for that round.
No, that was good. That was good. We got to discuss game philosophy. Soon to be a new subject at school near you. So, thank you very much for watching us this evening. You can join us on our next podcast, which will be in a fortnight's time. And if you'd look at the date quickly, you would know what the date is. Just dead air. I'll edit it out in the final edit. You can join us on our next podcast on the 13th of February 2025. That's 18:30 GMT. You can check out our next games night on the 12th of February 2025, approximately 8:30. That you can check us out on twitch.tv/RandNerds and twitch.tv/SuffolkRam. And you can also check out the podcast on youtube.com/RandNerds and twitch.tv/RandNerds. And you can watch us play our new game that we've been discussing. We'll discuss at a later date, but you can join us on our new one we've been playing. We started yesterday and it's very, very good.
Very good. Oh my God, it's really good.
It is. And it was a random find on Steam. So
beautiful.
So very much that. And so for me, the Suffolk Ram.
Skazz.
We'll see you in a fortnight. Have a good evening, guys.
Take it easy.